I'm Ron Deibert, and I received a significant chunk of the Snowden disclosures. It really blew my mind.
Ron Deibert researches digital espionage and nation-state hacking. In October 2013, he received a phone call about newly released Edward Snowden documents revealing mass surveillance in Canada.
I travel a lot, and I was going to Pearson Airport, and because I fly a lot, I'm lucky to have lounge access. So once I got through security and checked in, I customarily go into the lounge and I boot up my laptop. We have certain protocols that we have to follow. Obviously connecting, or maybe it's not obvious to a lot of people, but connecting through an airport Wi-Fi is among the most insecure ways to connect to the internet. So we take a series of precautions before connecting, and once I got through that whole routine and the protocols that I follow, I checked my email, and there was one from a CBC journalist asking if he could give me a call. So I, pulled up my iPhone and plugged in my headphones and said, sure, give me a call.
Ron is one of the world's leading experts on digital espionage, but what he was about to hear would shock even him.
I was quite surprised to hear that he said to me quite openly that they had received from Glenn Greenwald and company some Snowden-related material that was unredacted. Glenn Greenwald, of course, is the Intercept journalist to whom Edward Snowden entrusted a large portion of the cache of materials that he took from the NSA. And what Greenwald and company had done was kind of farm these out in a federated manner to journalists in other countries where they spotted topics of national significance for that country. And that's what they had done in this instance. They had supplied some material to the CBC, and then the CBC was looking for experts. I'm one of the few people that has studied signals intelligence in this country, so it wasn't surprising that they reached out to me. What was very surprising was the manner by which they did this, which is to call me on an open line while I'm sitting in the airport. And to my shock, when he began to describe what the slides were about, this kind of cursory examination that he did, it's about hacking Wi-Fi networks in airports, including Pearson Airport, the very airport I was sitting in when I took the call.
Ron had to be extremely careful because his next step could turn out to be a criminal act.
So I got off the phone very quickly. When I returned from my trip, we arranged a meeting in person. That didn't lessen the issue. In fact, it magnified it more because he then turned over to me by hand a manila envelope containing photocopies of classified intelligence programs. So I had to think very carefully about what to do next, consulted some senior colleagues, and decided that I better, after examining them, deposit them with a lawyer, a third party, in a safe somewhere, and then loudly announce that over the phone and in the air as I was walking down the street, in case anyone was listening. I do not have these documents. They are now in possession of my lawyer in a safe.
As Ron and his team deciphered Snowden's revelations, it became clear to him that state-sponsored digital surveillance had become much deeper and easier to implement than ever.
A casual reader looking at this might assume that our signals intelligence agency in Canada had gone to Pearson's airport and had actually, put some special equipment, maybe under cover of darkness, that they would later, retrieve dressed as janitors or something like that. But in fact, they didn't go anywhere near the airport. So it's kind of a neat synopsis of the style of modern signals intelligence gathering. So these very well-equipped, powerful agencies, in a lot of cases, actually don't gather data directly themselves using their own equipment. In a lot of cases they do, but increasingly they don't have to, because we rely on this digital ecosystem that not only surrounds us, but deeply penetrates our lives, follows us around wherever we go, collects fine-grained details about our movements, our habits, our social relationships. So it's much more efficient for the signals intelligence agencies to go to the companies that own and operate this infrastructure and gather all this data and get it from them, use them as proxies. And that's what they did in this case. They didn't, as far as I know, set foot in Pearson Airport.
In his 2020 CBC Massey lectures entitled Reset, Ron raises alarm bells about how the digital world is eroding our civil liberties.
When I started out in this area, there was a lot of enthusiasm about digital technologies. People assumed that it might even lead to the end of authoritarianism. You know, the rise of the internet coincided with the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union. So everyone coupled these two and thought, you know, there's something about our new digital world that is leading to increased liberalization and democratization, when in fact the opposite has happened. We've descended into authoritarianism. We've seen kleptocracy spread worldwide. So I've become really, really worried. I think of it kind of analogous to the way scientists who study climate change must feel. Because I look around me, I think this is a disaster that's only getting worse. And you know, one of the aims of writing this book was to try to raise an alarm bell. You know, hey, this is bad. We need to change course. We need a reset. We need a timeout, because if we don't, we're in for trouble.
Ron believes our communications ecosystem is essential for our survival as a species, but that we urgently need a new set of rules to govern our digital lives.
So we need some type of communications platform through which we can share ideas, you know, access data, all of that. The problem is the way it's currently organized around this business model, which has been dubbed surveillance capitalism, is entirely dysfunctional to those larger aims. And it's throwing up all sorts of pathologies, creating bad habits, polluting discourse. So we need to fine tune and adjust it, not throw it all out. We can't retreat. We can't unplug. We can't go back to another time. You know, you could move to rural Montana, but you'd still be watched by drones and satellites and so on. You can't escape the digital environment within which we live. So we have to take control of it. And the bright spot here is we don't need to invent some new fancy cyber theory to do it. You know, the main point of my book is that there are principles and practices that go all the way back to ancient Greece. You know, humans have faced challenges like this in eras prior to our own. It may seem all novel, but it's not. We're still just human beings living with each other, and we need to come up with a kind of set of rules and principles, a constitution, if you will, as to how our communications ecosystem should be governed.